All right, let's dive in. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're going to be tackling something that, well, might seem a little, I don't know, ordinary at first glance.
Okay, I'm listening.
Laptop ports.
Laptop ports, huh? Those tiny little things on the sides of our computers.
Exactly. But trust me, it's way more interesting than it might sound.
You know, it's funny you say that. It's kind of fascinating how much this topic gets people fired up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
it's not just about, like, I don't know, technical specs or whatever.
It's about how we connect with technology, how we feel about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got a ton of opinions to sort through today, all from this really lively discussion on Lemmy.World.
Lemmy.World, huh? I've heard
Yeah.
of that. They don't hold back, do they?
Not at all. They definitely let you know what they think.
So what sparked this whole debate?
Well, it all started with a photo,
A photo.
yeah, of a Dell Precision laptop.
Okay.
But it's not just any Dell. This thing has more ports than you can even imagine.
Whoa, okay. Like going back in time.
It's a total throwback. Like, we're talking Ethernet, multiple USB-A ports, even an SD card reader.
Wow. The whole shebang. That's a pretty stark contrast to what we see on, a lot of laptops today.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, like, think of those super thin, sleek laptops. It's a completely different philosophy.
One commenter called it having options, and I think that really nails it. It's this like all the ports dream, right? People want control, freedom from all those dongles and adapters.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can feel that nostalgia in some of the comments. Like, people really miss the days of just plugging things in and having them work.
That hassle.
No hassle. One person even said they wouldn't even consider a laptop without a built-in Ethernet port.
It's interesting, right? Because it's kind of a reaction to this whole trend of minimalism we've seen in tech lately, especially with, those early
Oh,
MacBooks.
yeah, the Apple debate. We'll definitely get to that.
We can't avoid it.
But first, let's unpack this whole options thing a little more.
Okay, yeah.
Because while some people are celebrating all those ports on that Dell, others see it as, I don't know, overkill.
Too much of a good thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's a valid point about portability design, right?
Mm.
A laptop with a ton of ports is going to be bulkier, heavier.
Makes sense.
And if you're only using a couple of those ports regularly,
Yeah.
are the others just dead weight?
Yeah. One comment I saw was like, look at all those ports I'll never use. I mean, some people just want something streamlined with only the essentials.
Totally. And this is where USB-C enters the picture, right? It was supposed to be the solution, the one port to handle it all. Power, data, video, everything.
The one port to rule them all, huh? But has it lived up to the hype?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Because for every person who loves USB-C, there's someone who absolutely hates the whole dongle life.
Oh, yeah, dongle life. You either love it or you hate it, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's almost become like this cultural phenomenon, hasn't it?
Right. It really has. And what's fascinating is how this whole debate reveals this tension we have with technology.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, on one hand, we want progress, right? We
Yeah.
crave those new innovations, the cutting edge standards that promise to like simplify our lives.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's something comforting about the familiar, the stuff that just works without needing a PhD in tech to figure it out.
Oh, yeah. I get that. Like, sometimes I just want to plug things in and not have to think about it.
Exactly. And with a new standard, especially something like USB-C, there's always a learning curve. There's a cost, sometimes even a feeling of being forced to adopt this whole new ecosystem.
Right, right. And the thread's full of comments from people who are frustrated with that, having to buy new adapters, carrying a whole bag of dongles just to use their old devices.
Yeah, and one commenter even called it a tax on progress, which I thought was a pretty interesting way to put it.
Yeah, it's like early adopters are kind of paying the price for
Yeah.
all this new stuff.
That's often the case. But of course, there's the other side of the coin, too. The people who are all in on USB-C, they see it as the future, and they're embracing it.
Yeah, they point to the versatility, the fact that it can handle, like, power, data, video, all through one little cable.
Right, right. And they argue that any short-term hassle is worth it for those long-term benefits.
Like, a lot of people talk about how elegant a single USB-C connection is for, like, a desktop setup. You have a dock that connects to everything, your monitor, peripherals, even charges your laptop, all through one port.
It streamlines everything, gets rid of that cable clutter.
Yeah, And then there's the whole future-proofing argument.
Yeah.
As more and more devices adopt USB-C, having a laptop that's, fully equipped that makes you ready for whatever comes next.
Right. The hope is that it makes things easier in the long run. But
Hmm.
but as the thread highlights, not all USB-C ports are created equal, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's something I've learned the hard way.
You've got different generations of the standard, different levels of power delivery, even compatibility issues can pop up.
Mm, so frustrating. It's like you can't just assume any USB-C cable or adapter will work with any port.
And for people who aren't super tech savvy, that adds another layer of confusion. The thread even gets into some pretty technical details about data transfer rates and power delivery specs.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. So where does that leave us? Is USB-C the savior of the port world or just another source of frustration?
I think it's probably somewhere in between. It's definitely here to stay, and it has a lot of potential, but the transition hasn't been smooth. There are still some wrinkles to iron out.
And until then, it's important for people to be aware of those limitations, those potential pitfalls,
Yeah.
and to make informed decisions, figure out what works for them.
Absolutely. And speaking of companies that have made some interesting choices regarding ports, we can't avoid the Apple elephant in the room, can we?
Oh yeah, Apple. They've definitely made some bold moves when it comes to ports.
They've really embraced minimalism, sometimes maybe a little too much. They were early adopters of USB-C, going all in with a limited port selection on their early MacBooks.
Which, as we've seen in the thread, caused a lot of debate. Some people loved the clean look and were happy to use dongles for older devices.
But others felt like it was a step backward, particularly for professionals who relied on those specific ports for their work.
The removal of the SD card reader was a big one. Photographers, videographers, they were not happy.
Yeah, there's a comment in the thread that says, Apple sacrificed functionality for form. They felt like the design was prioritized over the practical needs of the users.
But it is interesting to see how Apple has responded to that feedback in recent years. They've actually started to bring back some of those ports they got rid of.
It's true. On the newer MacBook Pros, we've seen MagSafe make a comeback, HDMI, even the SD card slot.
So maybe they're realizing that a completely minimalist approach wasn't the best for everyone.
It's possible they realized that the dongle life wasn't as universally loved as they thought it would be. Or maybe it's just that technology has advanced enough that they can now include more ports without compromising on that sleek design.
Whatever the reason, it's a big change for Apple, and it raises some interesting questions about where laptop design is headed.
One commenter wondered if this was the start of a trend. Will we see more laptops offering a more balanced selection of ports, catering to a wider range of needs?
That's a great question. Is the industry as a whole moving away from those minimalist designs and towards a more, I don't know, pragmatic approach to connectivity?
It's too soon to say for sure, but it's definitely something to watch.
Mhm.
And this leads us to another interesting concept that came up in the thread, modularity.
Oh yeah, the framework laptop. That was a hot topic.
The framework laptop takes a totally different approach to this whole port dilemma. Instead of having a fixed set of ports, it lets users customize their connectivity with these swappable modules.
So you can literally choose the ports you want and like pop them in and out as needed.
Exactly. For some people in the thread, this was like the dream solution. They loved the flexibility, the idea of tailoring their machine to their specific use case.
One person called it the Lego of laptops, which I think is a perfect analogy.
You build the laptop that's perfect for you, whether you need extra USB-C ports, an HDMI for presentations, even a dedicated Ethernet connection.
But there are limitations to this approach too, right?
Yeah.
The thread pointed out some drawbacks to modularity.
Yeah, for one, the number of available modules is still pretty limited, and they can be a bit bulky compared to just having a built-in port.
And what about losing those modules? They're so small, it seems like it would be easy to misplace them.
Yeah, one commenter said they loved the concept, but ultimately preferred a core set of built-in ports for peace of mind.
So modularity is a promising idea, but it's still got some kinks to work out.
It's a really fascinating example of how the industry is trying to find solutions to the ever-changing needs of laptop users. And it brings us back to the fundamental question we've been wrestling with.
What's the right balance? Functionality, portability, adapting to new tech, it's a lot to juggle.
And there's no easy answer. It really boils down to individual needs and preferences. But by exploring these different perspectives, by having these conversations, we can start to form our own opinions and make more informed choices about the technology we use.
It's kind of like we've gone on this whirlwind tour of laptop ports. I never realized how much there was to think about.
It's a surprisingly complex topic when you really dig into it.
Yeah. And for me, the biggest takeaway is that there's no perfect answer. It's so subjective. Like, what one person loves, another person might absolutely hate.
And that's what makes this such a fascinating discussion, you know? It really gets us thinking about how we use technology, what matters most to us.
Like that Dell Precision with all those ports, it might be like a dream come true for someone who, I don't know, works in a specialized field like engineering or video editing.
Where they need that rock solid Ethernet connection, the
Right.
ability to connect to legacy devices. They need all those options.
But then for someone who's always on the move, who needs a lightweight portable machine, that same laptop would be a nightmare.
Yeah, they'd much rather have a super thin ultrabook with just a couple essential ports and rely on dongles for the rare occasions they need something else.
And then you've got people who are all about future proofing. They want a laptop that's ready for whatever comes next.
Right, so they might gravitate towards something with a ton of USB-C ports, knowing that that's probably going to be the standard for years to come.
It's amazing how much these different needs and priorities shape how we view something as basic as laptop ports.
And it shows how important it is to really consider what we need from our devices. You know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's about finding the perfect fit for our own workflow, our lifestyle.
And speaking of finding the perfect fit, what about that modularity thing we were talking
Hmm.
about, the framework laptop? It seems like that could be a good option for people who want like the best of both worlds.
It's definitely an intriguing concept, having the flexibility to choose the ports you need without being stuck with a fixed configuration.
Imagine being able to like swap out a module for a high-speed SD card reader when you're, I don't know, working on a photo project, and then switching to an HDMI module for a presentation. Just like boom, boom, boom.
It opens up so many possibilities, doesn't it? So much more customization, so much more adaptability.
But we also talked about how modularity has its downsides too.
Yeah, the limited selection of modules, the risk of losing those tiny little parts, and the price can be a factor too. Modular stuff often comes at a premium.
I think it's a cool idea with a lot of potential, but it's still early days.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see how it develops, you know?
Yeah.
If it catches on, becomes more mainstream.
Yeah, and as technology keeps moving forward, it's on us to stay informed, to learn about the options out there and really think critically about what we need from our devices.
Totally. And discussions like this, the one we've been having, they're so helpful for that.
They challenge us to question those assumptions, to see things from different angles and ultimately to make more conscious choices about the technology we use.
So to wrap things up, we want to hear from you, our listeners.
What are your thoughts on this whole laptop port debate?
What are your must-have ports?
Are you a minimalist or are you team old ports?
Head over to Lemmy.World or your favorite tech forum and let us know what you think.
We're really curious to hear your perspectives on this ever-changing world of connectivity.
Until next time, keep diving deep.